Back to the video.
Someone says, I need to talk to my spouse. You say, totally understand. I think it's really sensible that you'd want to talk to your spouse and super fair. Just so I understand, out of curiosity, what parts do you think, now I'm here, what parts do you think they wouldn't like? What parts do you think they would disagree with? And so we've now moved from I have to talk to my partner to now we're back in the sale talking about the specific things. And once we get the prospect to name those things, then we can attack those, right? We're still in the sale. So let's say someone says, I hate this particular feature. You say, totally get it. I hate them all too. Just kidding. Let me just ask you a real question. Why not? And then we're back into it, right? Like all of these things is people will make statements as though they are deal enders. And beginners will take a statement like that and think, oh, I guess they're not going to buy. And that couldn't be further from the truth. You just continue to ask questions about why they don't like something. And by continuing to ask questions about their
Sales reps, why is your friend? He's exactly right. Prospects can say things and it sounds like, oh, that's a massive roadblock. That's a insurmountable roadblock or insurmountable hurdle we cannot overcome. End of the deal. No, just ask questions. Yeah. And why is a great way. Just help me understand why exactly wouldn't this be a fit? Just so we're on the same page. And there's ways that you can deliver it, right? To make it sound non-combative. He's bang on here.
You can stay in it and keep asking, because that's the point. The best closers make the most asks, which leads me to rule number 3, which is tell them what their question means. So this is a zoom in on association. So the first time I had this used on me, I was actually getting pitched investment or private wealth management from somebody. And I wanted to just get out of the conversation as fast as I could because I was like, I already have a wealth advisor, like I'm good. And the guy just said, oh, that's amazing. 90% of the clients we had that shift over already have a wealth advisor. So it means you already know how a lot of these things work, which means you'll be up the learning curve. And I was like, what just happened? I was like, I thought I was getting out of this and now I'm more like the customers that ultimately buy. And I ended up not buying from that particular guy. But I did think, wow, that was such a powerful reframe. How can I use that in all of my selling? And so the prospect has not had this conversation as many times as you. You should never be caught off guard with the questions or the statements that they're going to make. Remember, you've had 1,000 of these conversations. The fact that somebody could surprise you is ridiculous. You have to practice. This is why we train. And so a prospect is trying to just throw up bombs or smoke screens to get out of the sale. And again, to be clear here, what I believe is bad selling is one of 2 key things. One is you sell an unqualified prospect, which basically means that you're lying to them that they're going to get a good result or that they somehow are qualified when they're really not, which really underpins the main thing of sales, in my opinion, which we have across really all of our communication stuff in the company, which is state the facts and tell the truth. If you state the facts and tell the truth and this person is qualified, then you have the ethical obligation to ask as many times as humanly possible and get them to pull their head out of their ass so that they can see the world clearly instead of it being dark and full of shit, which it is up their ass, and help them make a decision to help themselves. That's the point. Now, if you get weird about resistance, then you don't.
I love the fact that he addressed that. He's absolutely bang on the money again here. From an ethical standpoint, once you've qualified them and you know it's a good fit and you know that this would be a great solution for them, you need to then guide them to the end of the sale. You need to then guide them to open their eyes and understand exactly why. Or through questioning, find out that maybe I was wrong. Maybe you're not a good fit. But you can only do that by questioning and then understanding and dealing with all the objections they're throwing at you to find out, actually, are they legitimate here? Or actually, no, we've qualified the prospect here. We know that they're a great fit. They're just not too sure and they just need to be guided, or they're actually going down the wrong path. I need to tell them how to get back on the right path. Great point.
Understand the job of sales. The best salespeople are comfortable when other people feel like there's conflict, all right? And so they're able to always de-escalate, which is why be like smoke is so key. It's a dance, not a fight. It's seduction, not rape, all right? The idea is that we want to always have consent from the person.
It's a dance, not a fight. It's seduction, not rape. What a quote from Hormozi. Jeez.
We always want them to want to be there. And people like you when you ask questions about them. People like you when you compliment them and you say, hey, that's a really smart question. Hey, that makes you just like the people who have the best success stories. And I'll show you a little bit more about some more associations in the next rule. Which leads me to rule number 4, use straw men for tough truths. So we've all been in a sale where someone just says something ridiculous, where you can clearly see that their beliefs around the world are so flawed that you have to have kind of a papa talk, right? Now, there's different ways of entering this. Some people say, hey, can I put my coach hat on instead of my friend hat? So the thing is that in all of these reframes, you're basically getting permission from the person to give them a harsh truth. Now, if you're a younger guy, and let's say you sell B2B, much tougher to do. So if you're a 22-year-old sales guy and you're talking to a 45-year-old, $10 million a year plumber, he probably doesn't give a shit about you trying to put your coach hat on. He just thinks you're a child and he doesn't care at all. To the same degree, if you say, hey, well, can I share something that really worked well for me? Again, the same degree, that puts you above him and he's not going to like that. And so I use 3 different strategies of straw men. And straw men in argumentation is basically putting, I use the word foil normally, but people don't know what that means. But basically, it's like you basically put up this caricature of someone who's just like them that you can then have the tough conversation with without insulting the prospect. So I'll give you 3 different ways that we do this. So the first way is when you make the association. So this is us going deep on associate here, okay? So this is where someone says whatever it is, totally understand that you're coming from that direction. I would ask those questions too. Now we make the association, so 1 of 3. So number 1, you can say, it's so funny you asked that because I had someone just earlier today who asked the same questions. Can I share with you what I just shared with them? Now the thing is that because I'm now talking about a conversation I had with someone else, I can now be brutal as fuck to this other person, but I'm not saying it to the prospect, and so it's not insulting. The second way that you can do this is that you do it in reference, and I said it earlier, to a successful past customer. That's so great, totally understand. You know what? That actually makes you just like Sarah, who had a similar plumbing business and actually crushed it with our marketing agency. And so now we've made the association, and she asked this question too. Boom. And then we handle the objection. All right. And so these straw men are particularly important when you are going to answer a question. So everything up to this point has been basically sidestepping, being like smoke, but sometimes you will have to make the answer. And so if we do need to give them an explanation or kind of break their belief when they say, I don't have time, you're like, oh, well, it's not really a timing thing, it's a priorities question. But if you say that to somebody and you don't have as much rapport, you're going to lose the sale. Right? Like that is the logical thing. Everybody has the same amount of time every day, and it's really just a question of priorities. But if you say that at the wrong time, they're going to be like, screw you. Right? And so by doing the straw man or putting the foil up or the caricature that you can then attack or talk to in front of this prospect, it creates a third party that's neutral. The third way of using the associate is that you can appeal to authority. So if you're in a business where the CEO is edified or the CEO is seen as a respectable person or an expert in the field. So it either can be fame or it can be influence or it can be expertise. It doesn't really matter which one, but as long as they have some level of expertise, instead of appealing to your own authority, you appeal to theirs, which is, it's so funny that you asked that. Alex just told me this thing earlier today. Can I share it with you? Right? And so then the person appeals to someone else's authority and then shares it. They're the messenger. They're not saying, I'm not saying this. He said it and I'm just sharing it with you. These sound like tiny sidesteps, but this type of AAA reframing is what separates beginners from pros. And when you do it this way, people actually like to be sold by you because they feel like they're being heard. You make associations that are saying, hey, that's smart. Hey, that's reasonable. Totally understand why you'd say that. Like, these are all things, like that's a rational decision. Hey, I think that's a fair point. Those are all things that someone wants to hear. They're like, hey, he's listening. He thinks I'm intelligent or I'm rational, or he's not discarding my decision. Everybody wants to be validated. Right? So it's the same thing as the angry boat, but just in a sales conversation. So in the angry boat for customer success or customer service, if someone's upset, you don't disagree with them and say, hey, it wasn't that big of a deal. Sorry, we were 5 minutes late. It never works because you're disagreeing with them. You're invalidating the reason that they're angry. So you have to get more angry. You have to go above. And that's where you say, hey, that's a totally reasonable concern, rather than saying that's a stupid question, right? Like, you might feel that way, but you don't say that. And the reason I realized this, especially with the association one, is I heard my sales guys and they were having a tougher time using some of the closes. And I was like, they're like, yeah, some of them aren't, they sound a little, tough. They're a little harsh. And I was like, no. And when I realized that, I was like, oh, it's because they're not prefacing it with this. If you preface with this, you can say almost anything. And this allows you to cut to the heart of the matter way faster instead of dancing around it because you don't want to hurt someone's feelings. Which leads me to rule number 5, which is retain childlike curiosity at all times. So one of my favorite ways of training this concept is actually training a physical thing that you do with your body, even if you're on a sales call and they can't see you, because your tone will change based on how you're standing, if you're smiling or not. Your voice will come out different, which, by the way, I encourage you to have a mirror if you're on the phone next to you in your sales booth. And if you do Zoom, obviously you can see your own little image there. But I like to have people say, huh, and you say it just like that. And huh also buys you 2 or 3 seconds before you say your next thing. Say, huh, that's so interesting you'd ask that question. Can I ask you a little bit more about that? Like, if someone says something really nasty to you, right? But if you retain that way, the goal is to seek to understand, not win. And the way that I try to keep this, and if you're...
It's a great point. And again, you can translate it different ways across over in the States. Can work really, really well, the way he's doing it. Over here, again, if you don't feel comfortable doing that, you can always take a pause, or you can even go, sorry to jump in there. Just let me clarify something, just so I'm on the same page as you. I always like using that, just so we're on the same page. And it helps them, it makes them feel like, okay, Neil needs to catch up with me, as opposed to putting them down, right? So whichever way works best for you. But again, take a breath, take a pause, and then respond. Whichever way works
sales
well.
guide, put a little sticky note above your camera or wherever you look while you're selling, which is keep the human number one. All right, and so this is a really powerful frame that I actually learned from Layla for having hard conversations on the team, but it actually applies to sales, which is if you genuinely believe that the product you have is going to help this person, and this is a qualified prospect that you're talking to, then you want to understand their concerns so that you can help them get over them because you know this is the right decision for them. And so this is a frame that I like to think about. So let's say you could travel back in time, but you're in a different body, and you see your old self, and you know what the future is going to be, and you might say, okay, I have to convince this person to buy NVIDIA 10 years ago. And so, or I have to buy Apple stock, or I have to buy Bitcoin, whatever it is, I don't really care. The thing is you know that this thing is going to go through the roof. But the person you're talking to doesn't know you from Adam. Think about how you talk to that person. Now remember, they don't know who you are. Even though you know you would have absolute empathy for your old self and be like, listen, I totally understand, this seems totally crazy, but let me walk you through what I think is going to happen, right? What are your main concerns? What are you most afraid of, right? What would it take for you to say yes? What would it take for us to take the next step together? It allows you to...
What a great phrase. Let me walk you through what I think is going to happen. Now, how do we apply this if we're in SaaS sales and a prospect goes, for example, hey, I think I'm going to push this back to next quarter. Okay, look, totally get that. John, let me just walk you through what I think is going to happen over the next quarter while you push this back. And again, it's just a really nice, comfortable phrase. Again, what he says there brings you on a human level. John, totally get it. You probably have other priorities, right? Happy to pick this back up again in January, February, start or middle of Q1. John, before you go though, can I just share something with you? Let me tell you what I think is going to happen based on X, Y, and Z, or based on someone else's experience who did something very, very similar. Let me walk you through what I think might actually happen in the time between now and when we speak again. Very powerful phrase.
Make sure that you're focusing on the prospect rather than the product. And so you don't close sales by being right. You close sales by making the prospect right. And so the big understanding here is that you want to understand them, not beat them. Because as soon as it feels combative, you've already lost the sale. If they feel like you won an argument logically, you've lost the sale. The point is to make money, not to be right. And so we want them to feel good about the logical decision that we're helping them make. And if anything, you want to be a faceless hero in their journey. You're like, hey, I'm just the guide here. I'm going to just share the information that I think will help you make a good decision. Right? Oh, that's a great question.
Guide
Can I
sellers.
provide a little bit of context on that just from someone that had this experience earlier today? Right? Like all of these things are things that will allow you to give those hard truths to close the deal. The reason the association is so important is that it gives the prospect a label to then live up to. And so This is a 201 version of selling. But if you say, hey, you seem like a really honest person, or hey, that's a really smart decision, or hey, that's a really smart question, if I then give them that label, when I get closer to the close, I might bring that back up and then associate smart people by this thing. Right? Hey, you must be a good family man, right? Because you had some spouse objection. Fine. Seems like you're a family man. Family's really important to you. I think that's awesome. It's super admirable. Now, when I get to the end of the sale, I can bring up the fact that this is a family man, and because he's a family man, he should buy. And so it allows me to pair whatever their obstacles were with things that I'm going to bring up in the close. Pro tip, my universal response for almost anything. So I walked through the sales floor and one of the guys was on the phone and I was like, you should come. And I just walked through the room and then the guy was like, and so my sales guy was like, so you coming? And the guy was like, yeah. And it was super weak, right? He was obviously not sold yet. So I actually was like, give me the phone. And so I hopped on the phone and I said, dude, what are you afraid of? And so when you ask, what are you most afraid of? It gets you to the heart of the issue as fast as possible. Now, if it's the first objection, I would want to ask, what's your main concern? What's your main issue? What are the variables used to make the decision? That's like kind of understanding so you can triage. But when I'm further along in the sale, I'll usually ask, hey, what are you afraid of, man? Like, what are you afraid of having happen? And
Great question. If you can deliver it like that, perfect. What are you afraid of? What do you think is going to happen? Another way of saying it is, can you just walk me through what's your biggest concern here? Say we were to come on board, what would the first 30 days look like for you? And take them down that path. What's the biggest concern here? What's the thing that's holding you back here? Is it A or is it B? Really, really good to get to the crux of the problem, as he says, when you're further down the sale.
Someone's like, I just need more time. Then you say, totally understand. What would make it a no? And so by doing that, it still keeps you in the sale because at the end of the day, like you want to make a good decision. I'm the source of your information. So the best possible decision we can make is here. But again, you can only say something like that if you have rapport.
To his time point, I just need a little bit more time. Absolutely fine. Look, typically when I hear that, it's usually one of two things. Either I haven't showcased exactly what we do and you're not quite clear, in which case, I'm happy to go over a couple of things again for you, or you're having a concern about something particular that's holding you back. Is that fair for me to say? Does that sound fair enough? And then get to the crux of it. Because why do they need time? They need time because they're not sold on something. Find out what they're not sold on. Don't just go, yeah, absolutely fine. I'll follow up next week for you. It's Tuesday afternoon, a good time to catch up.
The sale, and if you continue to demonstrate that throughout. If I said something like that and I didn't have rapport, they'd be like, no, fuck you. So it's not going to work.
So there we have it. A masterclass from the man himself, Alex Hormozi. What a great video. So many great things to pick out from there, from keeping control, asking or responding to questions with a question. Yeah. And not a combative question, but a question to find out how important or what kind of answer are they looking for and how important is it on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being deal breaker, 1 being no deal breaker, absolutely fine. The 3 A's, acknowledge, associate, ask, really, really good stuff. Digging down on timing and just a lot of really robust sales process lessons there that when you come up against something, your questions are your friends. Yeah. Questions like why, how, what, all of these types of questions, but the why. If you're stuck, you can always ask a question, just like you would with a friend. If someone tells you something you don't quite understand, you say, oh, John, sorry, mate, I didn't quite get that. What does that mean? Or what do you mean by that? Can you help me understand that? Or why would that be a problem if someone makes a statement? But hold on, why is that an issue? Why don't you want to do that? Right? That's what you would do with your friends. Now you just need to polish it up when you're doing that with your prospects, but you still need to do it with your prospects. If you're stuck, remember questions. That will get you to the answer to the point where you get a bit of clarity. Really, really good. If you enjoyed that, as I said before, please like and subscribe. And if you are struggling with objections, like let me think about it, I've covered those in my objection handling masterclass. The link is in the description below. 50% off for the first 50 buyers. So get your copy now. It covers the list from A to Z of objections. You name it, I've got it covered. And I'll give you the background on each objection as well as how to handle it and what brackets they will fall into. So then you know every time you get an objection, you know which bracket to go to and how to respond to it and then deal with it effectively and move the conversation along. Guys, that's it for another week of the SaaS Sales Misfit and another week of Sell the Future podcast. If you enjoyed it, as I said, please do subscribe. It really helps the channel, and give it a like. It means I can continue releasing more of this type of content. In the meantime, have a good one, and I'll see you in a week. And if you've not had enough of me and you want to see more of my content, please click on this video right here, and I'll see you guys in there.